Afternoon Tableau Conference. How's everyone doing? Hey, thank you. Thank you all for coming to this session on updating your analytics strategy. I want to thank you all for spending a little bit of your Tableau Conference with me. I'm excited to see all of you. I hope this is a beneficial use of your time. I especially want to thank those of you who chose to sit in the front right-hand portion of the room. It's going to be very awkward if you try to walk out on me early. So thank you for your commitment to my presentation. Thank you. Good morning. My name's Jim Webb. I'm a senior practice manager here at Tableau. And what that means is I get the privilege to work with lots of our customers on putting together custom training, consulting, and support packages to make sure that all of you are successful in your own Tableau deployments. And prior to joining Tableau, I was actually a Tableau customer myself. I led a sales analytics team for a consumer products company, and in addition to lots of other analytical tools and packages, had the opportunity to grow a Tableau deployment from 25 desktops to over 1,000 users on our server by the time I had the opportunity to come over here. And just by way of a quick personal introduction, I'm also a triathlete. So often you'll see me out on the bike or the road. Fans, all right, thanks. So if you're looking for me in the early mornings while you're here at Tableau Conference, you can usually find me out on the data run. So I encourage all of you to come out in the mornings. We meet every morning here in the lobby of the Mandalay Bay at 5:45. Gives you a great opportunity to take a foot tour of the Las Vegas Strip, get to know some of your fellow conference attendees in a new and different way, and burn off some of the calories from all of the conference food that I know we're all enjoying together. So what we want to talk about today is our Tableau Blueprint. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to see our blueprint before. Really, the blueprint came to life by saying we have customers out there doing really terrific things with Tableau. And we wanted to document some of those things that make our successful customers successful. So after doing lots of interviews, we coalesced those things that we found as consistent themes for customers who are having success with Tableau and challenges for those that we're still trying to grow. And we've plotted those together in what we call the Tableau Blueprint, and we've put together this subway map that helps you plot your own course on your Tableau journey. There's three big components to this, and you heard Adam address them this morning during the keynote. The first is the agility of your deployment, your own ability to adapt and change as your Tableau needs adapt and grow. The next is your analytics proficiency. And not just the proficiency of those that create visualizations or publish data to your servers, but the readiness of your whole organization to receive and use analytics as part of their job. And the last part is your Tableau community. Your group of users that share best practices with each other, that talk about what's working, share use cases, challenge the status quo for you to do more with analytics. And there are lots of great sessions on each of these tracks available this week here at TC, but we're going to focus on the first part of that journey. Today, we're going to just talk about how you set your goals and prepare yourself to be more analytical and data-driven. So in the beginning, we want to start thinking about our vision and strategy for analytics. This is about asking yourself, what am I trying to achieve with data? And everything that happens after that should flow from that strategy. Next, we want to identify the individuals that are going to help us get there. And that starts from everyone from our executive sponsors all the way down to the individuals that are publishing data or analytics to our server. And after we've decided what we are going to do and who is going to help us get there, hopefully at that point, some specific use cases start to bring themselves to life. Now, I've told you that I was a triathlete. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about this journey like we talk about the sports of a triathlon. So for those of you who aren't aware, there's three things we have to do in a triathlon. We have to swim, we have to bike, and we have to run. So for us, that's going to be like our strategy, our teams, and our specific initiatives. Now, when you think about this swim portion, this is where most people say, oh, I can't do a triathlon, I'm not a great swimmer. Well, analytic strategy is the same. Most organizations don't truly have a strategy for analytics. So there are some folks that are going to be really great at this, and they're going to have an advantage, they're going to get out in front of us. But for the rest of us, we're right in the middle of the pack. We all have about the same abilities. We're going to swim, and we're going to get through this together. But it's important to remember, if we don't do this step well, we might drown. So the next part is the bike. The bike is going to be where we spend most of our day in our triathlon. It's the team building portion of our analytics strategy, and it's where we're probably going to spend most of our time in analytics. And the great news is, building teams is muscle memory for us. It's just like riding a bike. We build teams for lots of things, whether that's trying to improve processes in our organization, or it's trying to launch a new product. Heck, I'm sure you even have a team for the party planning committee within your organization. Building teams is what we do. It's just not always ingrained in our analytics strategy. So we need to take a new mindset for how we build teams for analytics. And lastly is the run. So the run is that part where if we've prepared well and the day has gone well up to this point, we get to sprint across the finish line to glory. But if we haven't prepared well, we've had a tough day, this is the spot where you're limping through a local park and you're dumping cups of water over your head, and your friends say, yeah, you look good. I think Jim's in trouble. So one other piece of triathlon advice. This is Mirinda Carfrae, one of the sport's great champions. And Mirinda is really fond of a saying that in any triathlon, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to win, or come on, this is the interactive portion. Otherwise, we have to do that thing where I make you talk to a neighbor and share ideas. So you're going to win, or you're going to? No, you're going to learn. Aren't you glad you didn't have to talk to your neighbor? So for each of these steps, we're going to talk about organizations that are winning, and we're going to talk about those that are still on their learning journey. There go my people. I must find out where they are going so I can lead them. How many of you have an analytic strategy that sounds a little bit like this? A lot of times we hear that an analytic strategy is, we're going to go out and we're going to work with the analysts. We're going to see what they're analyzing, we're going to find out the data that they're using, and we're going to build a process around it. Well, if what you were doing today wasn't working, building a process around it isn't necessarily going to help you change that much. And surely there are things in your business that you're trying to achieve. Think about your own line of business. Think about what you're going to do when you go back into the office on Monday. Those things that are waiting for you that you're trying to get done as a line of business or an organization. And then think about how data complements those objectives. Becoming data-driven doesn't just mean adopting data technology. It's a change in the way we think about doing business. And it's a change in the way that our teams approach analytics. So for you, that might mean surfacing better sales leads to a sales team. It might mean reducing inefficiencies in a manufacturing process and keeping costs down. It could be anything that you're trying to achieve as part of your regular business objectives, but we want to include analytics as part of that journey. So what do we see here? Shout it out. Car, what else? It's a dashboard. And when we talk to lots of companies, we say, well, great, what are you guys going to do with Tableau? And we hear, we're going to publish some dashboards. The problem with a dashboard, the problem with a literal dashboard, this was built to be ignored. You are not supposed to be driving down the road every day looking at the dashboard. That's distracted driving. You're not supposed to text either. But we build dashboards, and if I'm the person behind this seat, I'm just trying to get from point A to point B. I'm not trying to pay attention to everything that's going on with the dashboard. Because what do we do when we build dashboards? We put every knob and dial and widget and measure. There's a button on here that looks like the car is sliding off the road. I don't know why you need a light to indicate that to you. But this is what we do with dashboards. We try to take all the information we have and we jam it all on the same screen at the same time. And then what happens? If you're the driver of this car, I'm not mechanically inclined, maybe some of you are, but if one of these lights goes on in the dashboard, I don't particularly know what to do with it. I'm going to take the car and I'm going to drive to my local mechanic and I'm going to have him explain it to me. This probably sounds like analytics for lots of you. You get a phone call, one of your analysts get a phone call and someone says, oh, the KPI went from green to red. I need you to explain to me why that happened. And that's a dashboard analytics strategy. It's too complicated and most people don't know how to engage with it. So what we need to do is start beginning with the end in mind. There are two really important pieces to this. And I had the good fortune to take a class with the former CEO of Tropicana, a man named Willie Peterson. And he used to say that the output of strategy is unity of action. Unity of action. And what we need to do is think about what we want our users to do, what action we want them to take in their day-to-day lives after they've consumed analytics. What physical things do we want someone to do differently in their job? Is that going to be picking up the phone and ordering more products because they see that demand is increasing? Is it going to be rerouting trucks because they found out that there's a snowstorm taking over the Midwest at this time? But we need to think about those actions that users are going to take and design our analytics according to what we want people to do in their day-to-day lives. And importantly, the second part of this is we need to create some measures that let us know when we've gotten there. How are we going to determine if people are changing the way that they're doing things? And I don't mean arbitrary metrics like sales are going to increase 3.4%. I mean things like we can actually see that call volume is increasing or that individuals are engaging with a new part of the business. But we need to find ways that we're going to measure that people are engaged in analytics and taking a more data-driven set of actions. The great news about this is our Blueprint Planner is here to help. So as part of Tableau's Blueprint, we have a Blueprint Planner available. And it asks you lots of great questions that help start some thoughts for you on what initiatives that you have. Writing down the things that you're trying to achieve as a business. Identifying your key challenges with data today. What's prohibiting you from being data-driven as an organization and as a culture? And then starting to set some Tableau goals. Now that we know what we want to do and the things that are in our way, how are we going to use Tableau to be different? So let's wrap up our section here talking about strategy. First, for a good analytics strategy, we have to start first with business objectives. Then we want to think about creating unity of action. What are we going to get people to do differently? And perhaps most importantly, we have to decide how we're going to measure whether or not we're being successful. Now, I told you I'd share a little bit about what winning and learning look like. So when we work with customers that are winning, it's clear to individuals what they're supposed to be doing with data to be successful. And let me share a story of a retailer that we worked with. And one of their key strategies to bring people into the door was to be more successful with seasonal and promotional items. Think about Halloween candy or Valentine's Day cards, things that are common that many people purchase, but have a relatively short shelf life in terms of when we think about them. Now, this retailer has thousands of outlets all across the country and throughout the world. So putting together a plan for how you position those items in each individual store is really pretty impossible. But an individual store manager understands the traffic flow throughout their store. They know the clientele that they have, and they can better get a feel for what's working and what's not. But the challenge is that store manager is out on the store floor working with their customers all day and not trapped behind a spreadsheet. So this retailer took a very simple visualization on a mobile device that just showed the store layout. The store manager knows their store layout. They can understand that. And then they just took the items that were promotional items in that store and plotted where they were placed throughout the location. And then laid over that what their performance was. So in that way, we've taken a store manager who can see the objective, the seasonal items. They can see how they're performing. This is working, this is not. And they can start to take some meaningful action. They can look at the items that are performing well and say, well, this is doing great. Why do we have it in the back of the store? Let's move it up front where more people could see it. And they can take the things that aren't going so well and tuck them away so that they're not taking up key floor space. So in this way, this retailer took an initiative, created a data-driven strategy, and empowered a large group of people to take action on it. And for those that are still learning, data exists, but the next steps are unclear. This is what it looked like at that retailer before. When this data has been available for years, these store managers could always access it, but they just didn't know how to make meaningful use of it and connect it to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. All right, we're out of the water. We're going to get on the bike. So when I talk about Tableau, I like to say that Tableau is 50% software and it's 50% a state of mind. Tableau has succeeded mostly because people like you and the 18,000 other people who are gathered here with us this week believe that in addition to having great software that brings data and insights to life, using data can help make people's lives better. It makes people more efficient. It makes all of our jobs easier. And Tableau has grown through the passionate efforts of individuals who spread the word about how great data visualization can be in improving our lives and transferring that to other analysts and people within their teams. But as we start to grow to data-driven organizations, we can't do it as individuals alone. We have to start having a team mentality. So at Tableau, our sales leader, Dan Miller, likes to talk about being all in. He's got an analogy about if we were all sitting in a crew boat and rowing, if we want the boat to go in the same direction, we all have to pull at the same time and in the same direction. And I don't know that much about crew boats, but I do know a little bit of something about a bike. So when you're training on the bike, one of the things that you like to do is find a team of riders that you can go out and ride together. Because when you're out there on the ride, if you're the person up front, it's really hard work. You're taking all the wind resistance, you have to set the pace, you have to pay attention to where you're going, and everyone else gets to kind of come along for the ride. But the good news is, as a team, you only have to do that for a few minutes, and then you get to take your turn at the rear, and someone else uses their strength and their talent to pull the group along. And when we do that, we can all go faster than any of us could on our own. And our teams are the same way. Historically, we've had a few individuals that really knew data or knew analytics that were responsible for building everything for an organization. But I'd ask you right now, as you thought about some of those initiatives you have in your business, think about some of the other individuals involved in your business who might be able to help you along that journey. Whose opinions and viewpoints, whose knowledge and experience could you leverage to help inform your own analytics journey? And then the other piece of this, if you look in the way back there, we've got the team car. And the team car is there to provide you things like extra water bottles or a spare tire if you get a flat. And that's kind of like our executive sponsor. Executive sponsors are important because they help set the goals of the team. They help provide some formal guidance to what we're doing. And importantly, they bring resources to our analytics team. So what we want to do is make sure that we start approaching analytics with more of a team mentality. And as we do this, there's lots of things that we need to ask ourselves. Who's going to provide the data? Who helps review the content? Who's going to be in charge of saying what's good and what's not? You probably have 100 other questions to go along with these right here. But given that we already know where we want to go, we have to start thinking about who is going to help us get there. So we have to start cataloging some of those people who are going to help us on our journey. Because if we don't, one of two things happen without defined roles. First, we could move in that direction of the traditional BI project, where we have a very few people who have access to the data, very few people who build things, and then one day, from the mountain, behold, the KPIs, kneel before the corporate reporting. And we have one unchangeable version set in stone. Or the other version of this, we build what we like to tell ourselves is self-service analytics. And we let everyone get involved in the process. And for their skill level, they're probably involved at the wrong time of that process. And what you meant as self-service analytics really comes out as do-it-yourself analytics. So you end up with a server that's full of data sources and extracts and reports and dashboards, calculations and metrics, and no one knows what any of it means. So rather than try to untie the knot, they just go and rebuild it themselves. And now you've got dozens of users rebuilding the same use case over and over again. And where we want to be is somewhere right in the middle. We want to have enough guidance and strategy that we have information in a predictable way that users can find, but also we want to allow freedom so that we capture everyone's creativity. So as part of Blueprint, we've laid out several different org charts, several different ways to think about structuring your teams. So I'm going to walk through one of them with you here today. It doesn't mean it's the right use case. It doesn't mean it's a one-size-fits-all. You guys are going to have to tailor these for your own use cases and organizations. In fact, you're probably going to have more than one org chart for different lines of business or different use cases. But some of the things that I like to think about are starting with a steering committee. A group that's going to help us set that strategy, that's going to help us think about what our priorities are. And we have some key individuals that we want to involve in that. First, we're going to need the line of business. We're going to need those folks who bring us their strategies, who tell us about the actions they need their users to take. And we're also going to need our partners from IT. We're going to need those folks who understand the platforms, the data that's available. We're going to need some people who can bring resources to help us solve these challenges. And that line of business, they might have several objectives that come from different business leads, different functional areas that are going to need their own guidance along the way. So what we do is we establish a community of practice. You might call it a center of excellence or a center of enablement. Pick your own word. I like community of practice. It's like practicing law or practicing medicine. You're always getting better at it over time. But that community of practice can take those things from the steering committee, the objectives that we're trying to achieve, and then start adding context to it. The ways that we view profit and revenue differently within the organization. The standard color palettes that we apply. The way we distribute information to users. Really creating some standards that go beyond just that one steering case and line of business and really speak to a way that all users consume data so that a user doesn't have to spend as much time deciphering the data that's available and they get more quickly to the insight and the action. So within that, you probably have a couple different community of practice resources that sit within each of those business leads teams. So they can take those best practices, take the ways of working, and bring them back to work with individuals within an organization. The folks who turn those business leads' objectives into analytics and make data available, but we can do it in a standardized format, the way the rest of our community of practice is performing those actions. There's lots of other great examples within the Blueprint. This is just one that I happen to like. It makes sense to me. Importantly, a big pitfall of many organizations is building the structure around who's available today. saying, oh, you know what, Jill is a whiz with data. She can transform anything. She gets us all the answers. She's going to be in our community of practice. She's our data person. And we've got Bob. Bob over here builds great visuals. Bob is going to help us put in place our visual best practices. But what do you do when Jill wins the lottery? So it's really important that we set a formal learning path and a formal onboarding program around these roles. We don't want to define roles based on who's great at it today. We need to think to the future of how we onboard the next individuals into those roles, how we bring in the next COE lead, how we bring in the next person who publishes our data content, how we bring in those who review and certify visualizations that we publish to our users. And that's not just important for working with that team you have today, it's also important about how you scale to the next use case or the next line of business. I'm sure there's not a person in this room that hasn't had the experience of a new business group coming to you and saying, hey, you know what, we really need Tableau for this use case. Help us get started. Wouldn't it be great if you had a repeatable way that you could say, great, when you want to be successful with Tableau, these are the individuals that help you get there. Let's talk about how we build that within your team. Those repeatable use cases and defined roles are key to helping move forward. And again, our Blueprint Planner is really designed to help you with these initiatives. So first, it helps ask great questions about who your executive sponsors are and what they can do to assist. It helps you define who that data team is. And importantly, start thinking about who the broader audience is, who is going to receive this information after we've built it. So quickly in summary, first, importantly, we want to enlist an executive sponsor. Next, we need to specify how users are interacting with data. Get away from that do-it-yourself model. And lastly, assign those specific roles and responsibilities, start filling some key positions. So as we talk about organizations that are winning here, individuals in those organizations understand the role that data plays and how they contribute to that process. So I had the opportunity to go work with one of our large insurance customers, one of the largest insurance companies in North America, and attend their analytics day. And their analytics day is kicked off by their chief data officer, who takes the stage and says that we are no longer an insurance company, we are a data company that sells insurance. Now, you might say, like, oh, that's trite and that's easy to say, and you know that sounds like a good thing to say, but think about that tone that executive sponsorship sets for the organization. The way we've thought about doing things in the past is no longer. We are a data organization first. That's strong executive sponsorship. And then from there, they have users come up and present different use cases. They show the tools that they got to get there. They talk about the business wins that resulted from their efforts. And the whole team presents exactly what they did to help achieve the result. And in that way, the hundreds of people that attend this in their auditorium get to see how data is changing the way people do business and start interacting with individuals who can help enact that same kind of data change within their own business objectives. And now, for those organizations that are still learning, that's where we have individuals taking a DIY approach. This is where shadow IT starts to spring up. This is where we have lots of local data marts. This is where you hear the question, how do I export that to Excel? All right, we're on to the run. So now, if we have identified our strategy and the things that we want to achieve, and we've built the team and we know who our data audience is, some of the use cases and things we want them to do should start to manifest themselves. And it's important to remember that you don't have to do it all at the same time. Some of our most successful customers start with a single use case, and they work on that and get better at that. Maybe it's building one great visualization or creating one strong certified data source, but they build a foundation and get good at that and then move on to the next initiative. So for you, that might sound a little bit like we want people to be able to explore their own data. So we're going to create a curated data source with really strong metadata for people to use. Or it might be about understanding orders that are shipping late or high-value customers and doing outlier analysis and building a really succinct visualization that just shows them those unique data points that fall outside the normal range and providing that for your users to take action. Whatever it is, pick a problem, solve it, get better at solving it, and then pick the new problem. This is how you go from the start of a Tableau journey to becoming a data rock star. What's important is we really want to focus on a target. We want to think about, again, those actions that users want to take that are going to be different. So we need to think about a specific business issue that we want users to solve and how we're going to fit things into their daily lives. Remember that what we want to do is move away from that dashboard mentality where we're trying to cram all things into one piece of visualization. What we want to start doing is empowering many people in the course of their everyday activities to have access to data to inform actions. Very much in the way I shared the story about our retailers who gave store managers a view of how items on the sales floor were performing. In that way, we've picked one specific action, we've provided a very easy to understand visualization, and we're not taking people out of their regular flow to consume analytics. And I know there's probably a lot of you right now who are shaking your head and saying, well, Jim, that just doesn't work for my organization. But I'd like you to take a minute, think about those big challenges that you're trying to solve, the big actions that you're trying to get out of your users, and what you could really do to impact your business. And then think about those people that you don't think are ready for data, and start thinking about the data that we use every day. I mean, in this day and age, we are all data consumers all the time. We use data and data visualizations to inform everything that we do. We use data to decide where we're going to eat. We use data to decide what we're going to buy. We use data to decide how often you get up out of your chair. We use data all the time, and we do it because it's ingrained in what we're doing as individuals. It's part of the regular cycle. So really, when we think about data, today the workplace is really the outlier. And the workplace is the one spot left where we look at data as hundreds of rows and dozens of columns across many different tabs and expect people to use that and make meaningful decisions on it. So really, for today's data consumers, if you provide them data and good analytics to start making decisions, that transition's actually going to feel really natural for them. But what's important is that we don't just leave this to chance. We have to continue to iterate and refine. Now, the traditional BI model taught us that we were going to have one chance to build something. We had to provide the document of requirements, and it would go off to a project team to be built, and later we would get the final output, and that's just what we had to live with. But with modern BI, we have the ability to iterate and refine, to continue to sharpen our axe so that we're better at doing the tasks we need to do every day. So think about what you do today to gather feedback from your analytics consumers. Think about the processes that you have in place to iterate, refine, continue to sharpen the axe on what you're doing to execute every day. And think about how you could involve those people in more parts of your analytics journey. And again, we've got help with the Blueprint Planner in putting together some specific case studies. So first, great questions in there to help you identify objectives that could be solved by data, help you decide who that target audience is. Who's the bigger audience besides just the analysts who have access to data today, who could benefit from analytics? And then start building from there the right types of visualizations that are going to help make people successful and take actions in their jobs. So in summary here on our use cases, understand the things that are going to have the largest impact in your business. When you have that strategy, understand what actions people are going to take to have a large impact in what they're doing. And design your solutions to fit the purpose. Resist the urge to put everything into one visualization at one time, and seek feedback as needed. Find out what's working and what's not. This can be a tough conversation. I've had it myself. It's not always fun. But have that conversation around what's working and where you could continue to improve in analytics for your consumers. Now, when we talk about who's winning here, what we see is a solution is in place, and we have a definitive business goal being achieved. The last time Tableau Conference was here in this building a couple years ago, I had the good fortune to be invited by the Tableau Foundation to hear some of our foundation members speak about what they were doing with data. And we had some members from a food bank come up and take the stage. Food insecurity is probably a larger issue than most people realize. I guarantee there are individuals in your own communities who struggle to put food on the table every day. And these members of this food bank have the goal of increasing the amount of non-perishable food items that are donated to them. And they found a really simple truth that the individuals that worked with grocery stores and manufacturers and others to solicit these donations simply didn't know what good looked like. They didn't know how much their counterparts were bringing in. They didn't know what an average collection amount was. So in one really simple visualization, this food bank gamified the collection process. They created some constructive competition. They got other people talking about, hey, what did you do to get that big donation from these folks and bring in more products? And in really short order, they increased the amount of food donated to this food bank by 20%. 20%. Think about that. That's 20% fewer families who have to worry about putting food on the table thanks to one visualization. That's powerful change. That's data-driven culture. And our organizations that are still learning, we often hear, oh, we're saving time. It only takes us an hour to build the monthly reports. It used to take 6. That's great. But we really want to focus on what we're doing to drive the business differently. So let's sum up here. First, a strategy for analytics should start with your strategy for the business. There should be a close linkage between what you're trying to achieve in your everyday business and what you're building for an analytical framework. Next, we need to make sure that we identify all those individuals who are going to help us along the journey and put some formal processes in place. And lastly, discover and prioritize those use cases. Think about what we want people to do, and please remember, you don't have to do it all right away. It's a journey. And the blueprint is here to help. For all those of you who haven't visited yet, you can go right out on our website, tableau.com/blueprint. The blueprint planner that I referenced lives out there. It helps ask lots of questions to get you started on this journey, generate some good thoughts, as well as hundreds of pages of documentation that are repeatable processes that our successful customers have put in place for you to enact your own strategy for analytics. So with that, I will actually, there's a slide missing here. Let me also plug for our blueprint. For those of you who don't want to wait to get home and get back to your office to check out blueprint.com, we also have a blueprint booth here this week in Data Village. So if you haven't done so yet, please take the time this week, stop by the blueprint booth. You can take an analytics assessment to understand where you are doing well as an organization and where your opportunities lie. You can meet with experts to help construct your own blueprint strategy and the items that you want to take on. And for your own personal analytics blueprint, you can learn more about our role-based training. You can actually take tests and earn some of your own role-based badges for your own achievements. So for those who want to get started at Blueprint, please visit the Data Village. So with that, I thank you all for attending. I welcome any questions you might have.